Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Expert to Authority show. My name is Simone Vincenzi, and I am your host. This is the show for coaches, speakers, and trainers who want to grow their businesses by making an impact in the world. And today we have a special guest talking about productivity. In fact, the topic of the day is maximizing time freedom, scaling businesses through automation, delegation, and systemization. Our guest today helps overwhelmed entrepreneurs implement systems so they can go from being business operators to business owners and truly experience the financial and time freedom that drew them through entrepreneurship in the first place. So welcome, Mike Abramowitz. Mike, good to see
Hey,
you.
thanks for having me. I appreciate that, Simone.
All right, so let's start with I know we connected because that's why I love podcasting. I was interviewed on your show. Now you're here, so it's great to continue this conversation. And I got curious because definitely overwhelm i- is a very common situation for anyone and everyone in business. And so you come as a savior, say, "No, help me out." Help me out here. When in your work that you do with entrepreneurs, I would love to know in the field of like delegation and systemization for scaling businesses, do you find that there is like one or two core either mistakes or problem that gets entrepreneurs stuck, stopping that progress?
Yeah, it's a good question, Simone, because ultimately people go into business because they have some sort of reason they want to start their business. They have a gift, they have a talent, they have a problem that they want to solve. The challenge is when they start their journey into business, they're controlling everything. They're a grinder, they're controlling it all, they're making sure everything's done the right way. As they evolve in business, sometimes they never let go of that control. So the first thing I would suggest a business owner do is to do some sort of evaluation of what their time is worth. And that's the first thing I take someone through, a business owner. It's like, what is the value of your time? So if you take your desired income for the year, divide that by how many hours you want to work and how many weeks you want to work, that'll give you an amount that your time is worth. So if we walk through that exercise real quick and we said 300, let's say you want to earn $300,000 for the year as an example. Let's say you want to work 40 hours a week and you want to work 48 weeks a year. You take 4 weeks off and you work 40 hours a week. So that's 1,920. So $300,000 divided by 1920 gives you $156 per hour. So now we have an idea that your time as a business owner is worth $156 per hour. So now we need to audit. What are all the tasks that are below your target hour per wage and let go of control of those tasks? I'm not saying let go of control of everything, but make sure the business owner remains in control of the high value activities and offloads those low value activities. Too many business owners enter into the scarcity of, I don't want to let go of control. That's where a lot of the challenges from my lens comes from. Why do I know that? It's because I lived it. Being in business for 20 years, my previous company I worked at, I was the bottleneck for everything. I had clients calling me, I had new prospects calling me, I had talent, people that wanted to work for my company call me, I had existing clients call me. I was the bottleneck of all channels of communication. So I built my business in a way for me to be the one who had to make all the decisions.
Yeah.
So I restructured that at some point, and I could get into the origin story there. But ultimately, once I got clarity of, okay, these tasks, I could pay somebody else to do these things to buy back my time so I can reinvest that time in the high value activities. That's the place I would encourage a business owner to begin.
What would you say to someone? Because even before we go into the how-tos, so we're going to talk about some principles of delegation. We are going to talk about integration of technology. There's some of the questions that I prepared for you today. But I can already hear before even we start, people that are watching or listening saying, yes, Michael, good and great. But what if I don't have the money to outsource all these tasks? That's why I'm doing them, right? I'm doing
Well,
them not because I want to, but actually I cannot afford to delegate all these tasks that are below the $150.
then their time is probably not worth $150. Let's call it what it is. I'll push back on that business owner to say, if the business owner believes that the only way for the business to operate is if they're doing everything, I'm going to challenge that belief, because frankly, the reason why they're doing the lower value tasks is, and again, I'm going to be a little harsh here, is because they're thinking that being distracted and reacting to those things, being busy, is the same as being productive.
Yeah.
There are revenue driving productive activities the business owner must do that is only in the business owner's genius. That's what needs their attention. But the administrative tasks that support, that does not need to be done by the business owner. For example, managing their inbox, managing their calendar, booking up appointments, social media, video editing, graphic design work, any type of communication, reminder, all of these things, CRM, database entry, spreadsheets, all of those tasks, the bottom 20% does not need to get done by the business owner. If the business owner is doing those things, it's typically because the business owner is disillusioned on what are the revenue driving, productivity driving activities in their business, which is why we start with a time audit. We need to let them know if they're saying yes to low value tasks, they're saying no to high value tasks. We need to have the differentiator right there. And I know that, hey, you can push back on me all day and say, but I don't have the money. Then you need to figure out which tasks are going to make you money, and then take that money and buy back time and remove yourself from the low value tasks. That's where you install virtual assistants.
But that's a great reality check. That's a great reality
It
check,
is.
because the fact is that, okay, financially, you might not be able, I can think about, for example, my business, right? There is things that I want to outsource. I can't outsource everything on a financial level, but I can say, okay, what is a starting point? Maybe I cannot outsource the entire thing right now, but I can outsource a part of it. So let me start with a part of it. So there is always a starting point. There is always something that we can do. I remember when I was very lucky, because I met someone in my second year of business who ran a virtual assistant company for VAs in the Philippines. And it was very flexible. We had a great connection. And he said, okay, how much can you spend? I said, well, I mean, I was at the beginning of my business. I was 23, and I said, I can spend $100 a month at that time. So, okay, $100 a month is going to give you 5 hours a week, and then you have 20 hours a month of that. And so I started with delegating 5 hours a week. That person now is still working with us, which is my assistant Wang, which was then now 10 years later is still in the company, and has been working full time for us for now like 5-6 years.
Yep.
But that's how we started. So I'm totally with you. You pick a starting point and you look at what are the tasks to delegate. And I know for everyone, I know you mentioned that you do a 90-day plan. For everyone that is interested, Mike is going to talk a bit more about that later. But check out the link in the show notes, because it will help you also create a 90-day plan and delegate it, and finding out what are the tasks to delegate. So the link is in the show notes, and you can find it at betterthanrich.com/90-day plan. So betterthanrich.com/90-day plan. Now, Mike, where do we start though? Because I know there is a starting point. Before we go into the technology, we had a conversation before we started the interview. Said, yes, I can talk all day about tech, but let's start from that point, not that conversation.
Yeah. It's a good question. We created a framework that is called the Time Rich Six. And the Time Rich Six, I'll go through them quick and then I'll go into each of them. Number one is boundaries. Number two is communication guidelines. Number three is systems. Four is playbooks. Five is team. And number six is tech. And I'll just go down each of these real quick.
So
I'll give maybe
we're looking at, for everyone, listen up. So boundaries, communication guidelines, systems, playbooks, team, and tech.
You got it. And I'll go through each of these real quick. And the context here, just so you know, the context. I had to step away from my business due to a circumstance. My son was born at 1 pound, 4 ounces, and we were in the NICU with him for 8.5 months. So I left my business for 8.5 months to be in the hospital with our son. But my business, because of these 6 principles, was able to run without me and still produce $250,000 in revenue and 6 figures in profits without me there. When I got out of the hospital, my wife had to become a full-time medical mom, and I had to find a way to replace her corporate income that she was making in her job. So I had to figure out what is a problem that I could add value to the marketplace. And essentially, this was the birthplace of that back in 2021, just as a context here, because what I was able to install into my business came down to these 6 frameworks that really worked for me, that has now helped hundreds of other people. So number one, with boundaries, what is a boundary? A boundary is what are you protecting? What are your priorities that are most important to you as the business owner? So family, your faith, your friends, your fitness, your fun, what is most important for you? And then as far as the boundaries that you want to create for strategy, strategic partnerships, networking, really fostering relationships. So you got to figure out what is the priorities for you as a human, and what are the priorities for you as the business owner that is non-negotiable. That is the most important time that you need to make sure, if somebody steps out of bounds because they cross that boundary, what is it is for you? For me, mornings, evenings, weekends, and Mondays. Nobody touches my attention during that time, and the boundaries are 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday from 9 to 2. That's when you can get my attention. Anything after that is out of bounds. I know that for me, you as a business owner, you want to create that for you. Now, that wasn't always the case for me. In the past, it was like 24/7. I'm always open. But because I was always open, I was always overwhelmed. So number one is boundaries. What are your non-negotiables? Then number two is the communication guidelines. How do I want people to communicate with me? So what are your rules of engagement for emails? How do you want someone to email you? What is the situation they would email you versus what is the situation they would text you? Versus what is the situation for a voice memo? Versus what is the situation for booking a link, using a link to book with you? Versus what is a live call? What is the reason for a live call? So it's really important for you to get explicitly clear for a prospect, a client, and your talent. How do you want these individuals to get your attention? So that way there's some sort of predictability behind communication. So that way it's not always urgent requests of your time, where they could just text you or call you. There's other means of communication to avoid that distraction and reaction mode. So we avoid those interruptions. So the boundaries, communication guidelines. Then number 3, we said, is systems. Systems. So systems is what are the if-then. So systems are your processes. In business, there are 4 pillars of business. There's attract, convert, onboard, retain. And that is for your client journey and also for your talent journey. So attract, generating leads for new clients, generating leads for new talent. Then it's convert, sales or hiring process. Onboarding new clients, onboarding new talent to integrate them into your new system, into your business. And then there's retain, which is lifetime value of your clients and referrals and the maximization there. And then the retain of your staff. So that way you could have high retention and low attrition rate for your internal staff. So those 4 pillars all have a system of if-thens, a flow chart. And you want to figure out what are the if-thens to maximize the user experience, to make the user experience exceptional, kind of like the E-Myth by Michael Gerber, making sure that it's an unbelievable user experience for everyone involved. So that's system. Then there's the playbooks to support the if-thens. So if you have all the if-thens, great. Now you want to know, what is the documentation? The documentation would be an SOP, like a standard operating procedure, a resource, the documentation to support those plays. That is essentially what someone is going to follow inside of each of those systems. Then is the team and the tech. Then is who are the who's that are going to be running the plays. And then the tech is what is the technology, AI, scheduling software, CRM. What are the technologies that that team is going to be using to support the system and the playbooks and installing that in the business? I like sports. I think sports is a great example. You figure out what are the out of bounds. Okay, these are the rules of the game. Okay, this is how you call timeouts. These are the rules. And then there's a playbook. When to use is 4th and goal. What play do I call? it's a 4th and long. What play do I right call? So the coach has a bunch of plays, and then is the coach running the plays? No, the coach has a team of people that the coach says, go run that play, but the coach has premeditated what plays should be used, and they already have those rehearsed, they already have them scripted out. That's why it's a playbook. And then you have a team that goes execute those plays. So that's the way I would approach business. That's the way I encourage you to approach how to have time freedom, is the boundaries, communication guidelines, systems, playbooks, team, and tech. Now, again, that's a very big overview, and I'm sure your listeners want, like, give me the specifics. And I can go in any direction of the specifics by any means. I just want to make sure that the overview is what has helped me create 9 weeks off in 2023 completely without technology, while simultaneously saving 6 figures and investing 30 grand in personal growth and making sure I had time freedom last year. Also gave me the freedom to be in the hospital with our son. It's given me tons and tons of time freedom, and also helps our students and our clients as well. That's what I want for every single person, is not just to let me go make a bunch of money in my business. I want to use my business as a vehicle to help other people, while simultaneously making sure that I didn't quit my 9 to 5 to work 24/7.
And I think that everyone goes to this journey, because I remember, for example, it was my turning point when I started taking this seriously, particularly the boundaries one, which is the first step, was for my honeymoon. Because before I was working 24/7, and my wife said, "Okay, we're going on honeymoon. You got a year to figure. Give you a year notice. I don't want you to touch any work for 3 weeks. You're not gonna be online. We're just gonna be us for 3 weeks. You have a year to figure this out." And I gotta say, at the beginning, I was freaking out. It's like 3 weeks outside, like without contacting clients, because I set up my business being the bottleneck. I set up my business being the only one to be able to communicate. Even if I had a virtual assistant at the time, I had support. Even then, the support was relying on me to be in the bottleneck and the main decision maker for everything. And that was the turning point. That was the turning point and the catalyst to take this journey seriously. And then, like you started putting some non-negotiable in place. I think we are very similar. So Saturday is my day. Sunday is family day. Then I have basketball at least 3 to 4 times a week. My basketball slots, my basketball training is a non-negotiable. So days are Monday is my team day. Monday is just team. Clients don't get in touch with me because I only have team calls to set up the team for the rest of the week. And that starts in that way. But I can also understand from people that are starting this journey, or maybe that have already in this, it can feel overwhelming. Because if you think about the complexity of a business, where you have, this all if then that, when before you're creating your playbook, while you're creating your flowcharts, while you're thinking about the system, the communication guidelines, is a lot. So where would you start? And then we can go a bit more into some of the tech tools to supplement this. But what is the starting point for someone? Because I still got a business to run while I'm doing all these things. I still got a family. I still got other commitments. So where do I start?
2 places to start. Number 1 are your gaps. So every business owner has gaps in their schedule. I say gaps are traps. So we need to make sure, and those gaps are like waiting for the next activity. There's 15 minutes before my next activity. There's 30 minutes before my next activity. That's a gap. And oftentimes those gaps that are 15 to 60 minutes between activities are getting lost with, like, scrolling social media or going into the inbox or doing these tasks that are busy work that aren't productive. So first thing I would suggest is audit your time to find the white space. What are the white space that are during working or business hours of where you're being intentional? And how do you make sure that you find productivity hacks for that white space? Those productivity hacks. So here's my suggestion. Have a drop-down menu of 15-minute, 30-minute, 60-minute, and 2-hour activities that are deemed productive versus just reactive or just distraction just to kill the time. Such things that can move your business forward. Like, if it's 15 minutes, how many prospecting calls or text messages can I make? How many people in my internal team can I have a conversation with? How many outbound messages can I send that could potentially create opportunities for me? What data can I look at to see if there's any type of inefficiencies? These are a couple of examples that immediately show up for me, but it's like, how can I send gratitude and foster relationships with those that are really important, so that way it's not always an ask, I can give gratitude. How can I do an intentional reflection activity to do like a gap in the game reflection process, so that way I can be a little bit more intentional with my next conversation? So productivity hacks within the gaps is number one, because those, if you think about it, there's 30-minute gaps 5 times a week. That's 2.5 hours of productivity that could happen times 4 weeks. Now we got 10 hours a month back just from being productive during those gaps. So that'd be number one. Number two is I would have 2 hours of intentional blocked space every day, 5 days a week. That could be mornings, lunch, evening, but nobody can get my attention during this 2-hour block of time. Maybe it's 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Maybe it's 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Maybe it's right in the middle of the day, noon to 2. I don't care, but find a time where nobody could interrupt you. It's almost like you had a doctor's appointment and your phone is off. You're on a flight. If you're on a plane ride, no one can get your attention until before or after you go take off. And it's 2 hours every day you have a flight. And during that time frame, highly recommend you to audit the business, audit your communication channels, audit the conversations, and being prepared for all the intentional conversations that you need to have for that day and for that week. Do a traffic light report, a red, green, yellow, for every person on your team and every one of your clients. So look at all the communications, finding friction points, any inconsistencies. That's what I would highly recommend you to do to work on the business, working on the business and removing yourself from working in the business during those focus times, during the gaps, and then 2 hours a day. That would be the place I would start. If you can't do it every day, could you do it 2 or 3 days a week to start and build a ramp where you could eventually get to a point where you could do it every day?
Start simple. Start simple. Maybe what you can do right now is 1 day a week. Maybe it's 2 days.
One,
And then you
yeah.
start, and then you build that muscle, and then you build that muscle to the point where then you can create a productivity schedule that it works for you. This is something I'm playing around now. That's like a bit of geeking out on productivity conversation. I used to have I used to structure my week where in alternative days, I would have, for example, Monday's my team day. Then Tuesday morning, no one can contact me. I get meetings in the afternoon. Wednesday, I can get meeting in the morning, no meetings in the afternoon, and then vice versa. So it's one morning, one afternoon, then following morning, then following afternoon. And that worked, but to a point. What I started testing now is one full day of focus work. No one can contact me for that full day, and that's my Friday. That's something I'm adjusting to that because, as I mentioned before the call, we came with the back of a busy period. So definitely I broke my own rule there. But when I had those opportunities of having a full day, no distraction, just focus work on the things that matter the most, I found that it was way more effective than, for example, like a 2 hour block. But I found that a 2 hour block is more manageable. It happened more often than the full day. So I'm in a testing phase. I'm adjusting and getting used to it. But I was inspired
And
by the book. Which one? 10x is better than 2x. I think I was
yeah,
inspired by.
and one thing I want to echo there, Simone, is that the purpose of that time is to allow creativity to exist. So even if you as the business owner aren't really productive during that 2 hour block or during that personal day, it allows you to step away and see the forest through the trees. It allows you to step away and just get into creativity and allow the mind to explore, because that's where the best ideas are going to come from. So sometimes you might not be very quote unquote productive, but you can be creative. And if we can create space where creativity could exist, that's where the energy can flow from. Because think about it, you might come up with, oh, this is a new offer that I could bring to the marketplace. This is an ascension offer that can come up. Maybe it doesn't create like this immediate plan that you mastermind, but it creates the idea. And then you piggyback and you go into this energetic flow, but it was birthed from having the space for intentional. But you can't just say, oh, here's white space and a gap, and then in between sandwiched in there without some sort of intentionality. It is really tough to like kind of put the hat off. But if it was pre-planned, premeditated, this is thinking time, no distractions. It could be very intentional, just like go put in the airplane mode, going on a plane, there's nothing else to do. I'm just going to sit here and be bored, or I'm going to be productive, right? But from the other end of boredom, creativity exists. And from the other end of productivity, a lot of times you will see a
And
lot of the
boredom
results
doesn't
that come
mean
from it.
watching Netflix in the meanwhile, by the way.
Correct. No, it's
It's
just
not
sitting there
that,
with a
it's not
journal.
sitting there journaling, thinking about what can I do different, what can I improve. That
Correct.
becomes a really important space. I love the
Yeah.
conversation. So now we set up a foundation. So for everyone, make sure you understand your boundaries first, and then also you have your communication guidelines. So it's a great exercise that you can start doing from the back of this podcast, setting your boundaries, look at your communication guidelines. I know there is going to be more support on the 90-day plan. So make sure you check the link in the show notes or betterthanrich.com/90-day plan. I want to have a final question now, which is more around the technology side. So let's say that I have now a good flow. I can see, okay, these are my times of the week where I'm going to be focused, when I'm going to create productive time or focus time. I have sorted out my boundaries. I started a process, and now I need better systems and I need better tech as well on it. What are some of the tech tools or a tech tool that you use that helps you make this happen, actually?
Yeah, so I call my team AI powered virtual assistants. So my team of, I don't know, 15 or 16 individuals that are supporting me are all powered by AI. And I'll explain what that means. So the activities that are all happening for me are all designed by me. So Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time, is a really great resource for every listener. He calls it the 10-80-10 principle. So 10% is started by me. So I started the 10% for how do I get on podcasts? I started the 10% for prospecting on Facebook. I started the 10% for email templates. I started the 10% for how I want my inbox organized. I started the 10% for how I can get really good guests on my podcast. Whatever that may be, I start the 10% and then I offload the middle 80% to an AI-powered virtual assistant. They do the middle 80% to get it going, and then I do the final 10%, which is just to review or audit or approve to make sure it's done right. Repurposing videos, chopping up those videos, social media posting, content creation. You fill in the blank on a lot of that stuff. So a lot of what I'm doing is the first 10%, the last 10%, but that middle 80% is getting done. So what are some of the technologies and tools that they're using to support them? Number one is my tone and my voice. So I need to make sure that every one of my virtual assistants is using AI in my tone, pulling my tone in my writing style. They understand the brand, which is time rich and better than rich. They understand my avatar on who I'm speaking to, which is Henry, a high earner who's not time rich yet, that has a family and a business. So they know my avatar, they know my brand, and then they know how I write. So that way, when they write emails, respond to emails, when they're responding to comments, or when they're posting on my social, it could be in the appropriate tone. So using a tone analyzer or a writing style prompt in ChatGPT is really, really important. It's not just make this sound better. It's very intentional prompts, such as this is the brand, these are my goals, this is my avatar, these are examples of how I write some long form content. With all of that being known, now your VA could be equipped to be able to write and respond to you in so many words. So that's one. As far as some video editing tools, you can use something like Opus Clips. For example, take this podcast recording, you being a guest on a show, run it through Opus Clips and tell it, find the highlight moments that I can use to put into reels. And from 45 to 60 minutes, it might be able to pull out 10 or 15 solid clips from that source, and then you could run it through Descript or something like that, pull out the transcription from it, take the transcription, put that through ChatGPT and say, create a caption for me that's optimized with optimized hashtags that are relevant, and now being repurposed onto YouTube Reels or Instagram, Facebook, whatever, TikTok, using optimized language, but it's a human that's using some of those tech tools to support them. Then for me, getting on podcasts. So they'll go into there's a website that's slipping my mind right now of all the podcasts that are on there. Something, it's like a loop net for podcast hosting. And they'll go there and source all the business shows. And someone is organizing a spreadsheet for me, finding all those shows, and then finding podcast episodes, running those episodes through the transcription, pulling out the relevant moments from that episode. So that way, when they send an email to the host, they'll say something like, hey, I love the episode of blank. When you talked about blank, it was really, there was really great insights. I'm also I could be a guest on the show. I'd love to add this type of value to your audience. Are you interested in having me on the show? So I've had the team send out 500 of those. That's part of the process on how I've been on 69 podcasts now. So that way I can add value to the marketplace. So again, these are some things that they're doing for me. We have 60 or 70 clients that they're doing a list of all these other things as examples, but the most important part is the pairing of the AI-powered virtual assistants, figuring out what are your goals for lead gen, what are your goals for your marketing, all your administrative, thinking about those three parts of your business. How can you delegate admin, marketing, and really client fulfillment? How can you offload some things from each of those three departments so you're focusing on sales and leadership, because those are the closest to revenue driving activities for the business. So I could go in more directions, but that's my
I love
quick
that. I love
rant
that. I
there.
love the
Yeah.
conversation. I mean, for everyone, we looked at Opus Clips. So ChatGPT, you already know, there is a lot of power in feeding ChatGPT the brand guidelines. So building on what you said, this is something that I did recently. After now that you have the possibility to upload documents on ChatGPT, I don't know if you do the same. I have a document with already some of my short form posts, long form posts, the brand avatar. So then every time we create a new chat, say, okay, here is the branding guidelines, and it's just uploading one single document. And so that's already can help, even if you are doing it, it can help you a lot. Even if you don't have an assistant doing it, now you're shaving a lot of time, but it's something you can give to someone else. There's another tool that was
Yeah.
mentioned called Opus Clips. Check it out. Is really great to repurpose long form content in short form videos, and it's one of the most accurate that I've seen, because I tested a few, probably like you, and that's a great tool. And a lot of the clips that he pulls from a long form video, a lot of them, they are good. It really picks the right moments, so I love that. And then that's now talking about the podcast. That's how we got connected. I received that email from your assistant to connect us in this way. I end up being on your show, and you end up being here. So, proof in the pudding is here. What I
Another one I didn't mention, I use
okay.
vidIQ. I use vidIQ on YouTube. I like this one because it gives the transcriptions a lot, like very easily for YouTube videos. So that's one that my team uses. And then they also have another one where you could just put the link. I'm trying to find that source, but you could just Google it. It's like YouTube video transcription, and you just put the YouTube video link in there, and then it'll just spit out the
The full
transcription.
transcription, yeah, I see. I know that. I think
So
it's
that way
video.
you could take
Yeah,
that transcription and say, give me the summary of blank. So like 10x is easier than 2x or better than 2x, that book. You could just take like parts of that and put it into there and create content. But ultimately getting transcriptions from your episodes, your podcast, things that with your tone, your voice, there's so much that you could ask GPT. I actually recently learned from a friend of mine. His name is Jeff Woods, and he has quality in versus quality out, like how to train your chat GPT, that's been really helpful. So I'd like to just give that to your listener real quick. And there's 6 prompts if you want to just write these down. But the first one, when you're writing a prompt, how to write a good prompt for GPT. Number 1 is your task description. So hey, ChatGPT, I'm going to have you do this task. This is the description of the task. Then number two is the role. I want you to pretend to be, or I want you to act like a professional copywriter. I want you to be a business expert. I want you to act like the CEO of a multi-million-dollar franchise, right? Whatever role you want them to be. Then you tell them the boundaries. I want you to stay within these boundaries when you communicate with me. Meaning, like, I don't want you to respond with anything until I tell you to. I want you to ask me a question before you give me an answer for this whole conversation, as an example. Then number four is context. The context meaning, what am I using this information for? Number five is specific requirements. Specific requirements. The more specific you could be, such as, I want this to be no less than this many words, and I want this to be this many paragraphs or this many talking points. And then the final one, number six, is reasoning behind those specific requirements, because I want to avoid rambles. I want to make sure it's just, to the point, or I want as detailed, I want it to be as long as possible with as many details as possible so I could curate it on my own. So that's the Rethinking How to Prompt Quality In versus Quality Out by Jeff Woods. And that's task description, role, boundaries, context, specific requirements, and reasoning. I recently learned this, and it's really helped me
Game
put
changer.
language behind the prompts, which has been really helpful for me.
I can see that. I can see that because you're training the AI, you're giving the AI all the information that he needs, she needs, they needs. I don't even know what kind of pronouns to use for AI now. Then to give you the output that you want. This has been a fascinating conversation, Mike. I love talking productivity. That's definitely a topic that every entrepreneurs, well, a lot of entrepreneurs that I know, they are either struggling with or obsessed with. You have everything in the spectrum. People that optimize every second of their life to people that don't have a freaking clue of what they're going to do during the day. You have everything in between. So tell us more about the 90-day plan, because we mentioned you can
Sure.
find it in the show notes. There is the link, or betterthanrich.com/90-day plan. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. By the way, just so you know, your episode released today on our podcast. I don't know if you knew that. So released this week. It's called Embracing Your Zone of Genius, I believe is what we called it on YouTube. But anyway, betterthanrich.com/90-day plan. I will personally hop on with you and figure out what are the lower value tasks for you to offload in the next 90 days. So if you want your time freedom, if you want some time back from the lower value tasks, I'll ask you the questions. What is your focus? What are your outcomes? And then what needs to get offloaded, or what's not getting done that if they were getting done, they would create an environment for productivity to exist. That's essentially what I'll walk you through. I'll give you a workbook that will be paired with it. And I think you'll get a tremendous amount of value. And on the other end of that, depending on what your tasks are, if our company, we have an AI powered virtual assistant agency. It's an account manager model where our team could be installed into your business and handle all of those tasks for you. I'll let you know that we could do that for you if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, you'll at least know what needs to get delegated. But if it makes sense for us, one click of a button, our team to delegate, you to delegate it to our team, and our team will handle it for you. Great. We would love to support you if we can. But either way, I know the conversation will be tremendous value to you. If you're a business owner, if you're a high earning business owner, I would say, that wants to buy back their time. If you're like in a startup phase where you're like, I'm broke, I got no money, you get a lot of value of what needs to get delegated. I'll still offer that to you. But this is really designed for someone that's at a phase of life. They have a family, they have a business, and they're like, I need my time back. Like, I got money, but I'm burned out. Like, I'm doing everything. I need to remove myself as the bottleneck for my business. Help. That's really who this session is going to get. That's who's going to get the most value from this conversation with me. But I'm down to help anyone who hops on my calendar.
Make sure you get it. Again, you can find the link in the show notes, or go to betterthanrich.com/90-day plan. Mike, it has been an absolute pleasure having this conversation. That's definitely got me thinking about a few areas of my business that I can systemize, that I can smooth, that I can make things better. So I'm going to look back in particular in communication guidelines and playbooks. I think there is a few There is a bit of work to be done there. So I appreciate this episode. I appreciate you jumping on, and I kind of wait to maybe do another round, to do a second round of interview on productivity. What do you think?
Hey, I'm always down.
All right, that's great. So everyone, please make sure you connect with Mike. Also, his all the social media links, website on top of the 90-day plan is in the show notes. So check it out. If you haven't subscribed yet to the show, make sure you subscribe. Give us a good review. It's good for the show. It's good for the guests. It's good for my ego. It's good for everyone. So give us a good review, and I cannot wait. See you next time. And remember that together we grow exponentially. Ciao.